Enough with the tea talk now. Let's talk about alcohol for a break. As you've heard, the Minister of Finance send a message that people should just give suggestions regarding tax, what we should tax, or a whole lot of good ideas that you can give it to the finance minister to make decisions and include maybe some of the suggestion in his speech. That's just between you and me, whether this makes any difference, whether the ANC-led government minister will effect changes, but it's one of those fancy things that they do before the budget. So now we know that the government is set to tax the alcohol industry. Remember, this is the industry that's been shut for an average of so many days, so many months. When they open, all of a sudden, the president will just come up on your TV screen and talks about immediate closure or banning of the selling of alcohol. And now the SAB had just pleaded with the government saying, please do not raise the tax on us because of we didn't make anything. They're not even saying, hey, scrap the taxing on our side because we didn't do anything. We've been one of the most top 3 entities in businesses that's been shut down, that's been vilified throughout. Already 165,000 jobs are being lost in the alcohol industry. About 30% of local brewers have shut down for good, and over 8 billion rands been lost in terms of tax money that the government would have accrued from the alcohol industry. This is excluding the tobacco industry, right? And as a result, also the other big problem is that the illicit/illegal alcohol industry as well as cigarette industry now are running parallel with the formal alcohol industry and the cigarette industry. In other words, each and every time President Ramaphosa bans the selling of alcohol for maybe a specified period of time, the illicit alcohol industry sells their alcohol at 300% way up in terms of their pricing and making the money and pocketing it itself without being taxed. All right. And as a result, also the illicit cigarette and alcohol trade has an infrastructure, a sound, solid infrastructure of distributing their goods. So think of it. When the president now bans alcohol, each and every time he bans alcohol and cigarette, what happens? The illicit industry springs up and starts selling alcohol. In other words, alcohol then gets sold at a exorbitant high price. Obviously, that affects families. For those people who are super dependent on alcohol, it means that those 2 loaves of bread that a peasant who then bought an expensive alcohol would then have to do with 1 loaf. So obviously, those are personal responsibility for individuals, of which there's nothing you can do about it, but it impacts the society as well. And then when the formal industry opens up already now, for instance, if the cigarette industry now allowed to now operate, people no longer go to the stores to buy the cigarettes because the the informal industry now would sell the cigarette at a lower price, which is cheaper. That prompts customers to go buy cheaper illegal stuff. And then when the alcohol gets banned again in cigarettes, the illicit industry now sells those products at a higher price, about 300% way up, and at the same time getting the money and pocketing it without that money being able to be taxed because it cannot be traced. So we will see what's going to be happening with the government, whether they're going to come up again with their what they call the sin tax. They call it the sin tax. And at the moment, we took a little bit of break from Cele because alcohol now is operating, and we'll also see him springing up as soon as the alcohol has been cancelled. Again, remember his reason why alcohol shouldn't be sold. Now, I thought it was because of a couple of years ago they broke into his house and stole his expensive whiskeys, but he had an interview with a media and told them about the heartbreaking issues of people that he knows closely who were killed by their loved ones because of alcohol. So as a result, it's personal to him. Of which leaders leaders in our society shouldn't take their personal issues and make it our personal issues. There are people in the other families who are having family members who are alcoholic, who are obviously addicts when it comes to smoking, and they are in serious health problems. But you can never say that my family is having this problem of alcohol, and my mom, my dad lost their houses and end up being in the street, and therefore their kids also pursued a life of crime as a result. So I was the lucky one. I became successful now, and I'm in government now, and my job is to make sure that alcohol is not being sold. I'm just giving an example. All right. So that has nothing to do with the community. See, it's more like blaming guns for the crimes that criminals commit instead of blaming the criminal. And also trying to, with this issue of alcohol, we have to try to find ways in which we can build up our societies, and also get to the real crux of the issues that makes our society to be the way it is. What makes people to regress and become criminals in the societies? What can be done in terms of government side to change the society for the better, with the creating situations where there's a conducive environment to create jobs, the rule of law and order, which is fair and equal to all across the board in the nation, without having other people being, not being affected by the law, and while others are being just thrown away. For example, with issues of government officials flouting COVID regulations, they get a slip on their wrist and asked to just apologize, pay the amount which they can definitely afford. And then where else now you find situations where people like the father of that Sundowns player, Mucheka Madisha, who it was said in the media that his father was being arrested for flouting COVID regulations. So it's one of those things. If it were a funeral of one of the ANC cadres, you'd have an overflow of people coming in and out. We've seen them in pictures flouting COVID regulations, and you'll just hear a statement from the political party saying that we're doing an investigation. And you know, with the ANC government, it's always investigation after investigation. So people are having investigation fatigue. It's sort of like the steering committees or the task teams that are churned out, that are always been talked about. So as a result, people don't even do follow-ups with that. They've lost faith with the government. They've lost faith with governance. And clearly the government had failed in balancing the livelihood of people being their jobs, and as well as protecting them, well, at least coming up with measures to mitigate the issue of the infection. So my name is Mamuji, and thanks for watching the Mamuji show, and I'm out.